The Valorian collective had ruled the Andromeda Quadrant for 12,000 cycles. Their empire was vast and powerful and stretched across 900 star systems. No species had ever challenged their authority. No fleet had ever breached their borders without permission. The Valorians were the masters of this corner of the universe, and they knew it well. Admiral Zorath stood on the observation deck of the Sovereign's Eye. This was the largest monitoring station in the entire quadrant. It floated in the darkness between stars like a metal god, watching over its children. From here, the Valorians could see everything. Every ship that moved through their space was tracked. Every transmission was recorded. Every whisper of intelligent life was cataloged and studied. Zorath was old by Valorian standards. He had served the collective for 300 cycles and had seen many things. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had witnessed species beg for mercy before being absorbed into the collective. His 4 eyes had grown tired of the same patterns repeating over and over again. Someone would challenge the Valorians. The Valorians would crush them. Peace would return until the next fool decided to test their strength. Behind the Admiral, hundreds of technicians worked at their stations. Their elongated fingers moved across crystalline interfaces with practiced ease. The room hummed with quiet efficiency. Everything was as it should be. Everything was under control. Then it was not. Every alarm in the station screamed at the same moment. The sound was deafening. Red lights flashed across every surface, and every screen flickered with emergency warnings. Zorath spun around, and his 4 eyes went wide with confusion. In 300 cycles of service, he had never heard all the alarms activate at once. "Report," he commanded. His voice was steady, but his hearts were beating faster than they should. The senior technician was staring at his display. His pale blue skin had gone almost white. His hands were trembling over the controls. "Admiral, we have detected a vessel at the edge of Sector 7. "A vessel?" Zorath moved closer to the main screen. "What kind of vessel? Who does it belong to?" "Unknown, Admiral. Unknown." "Check again." "Run the signature through every database we have." "I have, sir. 3 times. The ship does not match any known design. The materials of its hull are unfamiliar. Its propulsion system is unlike anything in our records." The technician looked up at his commander with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, this ship does not exist in any database of any species we have ever encountered." Zorath felt something cold move through his body. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a very long time. It took him a moment to recognize it as fear. "How did it enter our space?" "Show me the approach vector." The technician's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "There is no approach vector, Admiral. The ship did not enter our space. It simply appeared. One moment there was empty void. The next moment there was a ship. No hyperspace signature. No warp trail. No quantum displacement. Nothing. It is as if the vessel materialized from thin air. The observation deck had gone completely silent. Every Valorian had stopped working. Every eye in the room was fixed on the main display where a small blip represented the impossible. Zorath walked slowly toward the screen. His boots made no sound on the polished floor. He studied the readings with the careful attention of a predator examining unknown prey. The ship was not large by Valorian standards. It was perhaps a quarter of the size of their smallest cruiser. Its design was simple and functional without the elegant curves that most spacefaring species favored. It looked practical. It looked like something built by creatures who cared more about survival than beauty. "Have they made any hostile moves?" Zorath asked. "No, Admiral. The ship is simply drifting. It appears to be scanning its surroundings." "They are lost," another officer suggested. "Perhaps their navigation failed, and they ended up here by accident." Zorath considered this possibility. It would explain the confusion. A species from some distant corner of the universe might have developed their own form of travel. An accident could have brought them here, but something about that explanation did not satisfy him. The ship's sudden appearance was too clean, too precise. This was not the result of a malfunction. Someone or something had sent this vessel exactly where it was. "Open a channel," Zorath ordered. "All frequencies." I want to speak with whoever's aboard that ship." The communication officer worked quickly. "Channel open, Admiral." Zoroth straightened his posture and clasped his hands behind his back. He had delivered this message thousands of times to thousands of ships. The words came automatically. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered sovereign Valorian space. Identify yourself immediately or face destruction." Static filled the speakers. Then silence. Then more static. The seconds stretched into minutes. Zoroth was about to repeat his message when something happened. The ship's engines activated. Not to flee. Not to attack. The vessel simply stabilized its position and turned slowly until what appeared to be its main viewport was facing the Sovereigns. It was almost as if the ship was looking at them, Admiral, the communication officer said slowly. "They are responding." On screen, the main display flickered, and then a face appeared. It was not a Valorian face. It was not the face of any species Zoroth had ever seen or heard of in his 300 cycles of life. The creature had only 2 eyes. Its skin was a strange pinkish color. It had hair on the top of its head and on its face, around its mouth. It was looking at the camera with an expression that Zoroth could not read. When the creature spoke, its voice was calm and steady. The universal translator struggled for a moment before finding the right patterns. "This is Commander Danny Sullivan of the Earth vessel Wanderer. We come in peace. We mean no harm to anyone. We are explorers, and we seem to be very far from home." Wanderer, explorers. The words meant nothing to Zoroth. He turned to his intelligence officer. "Find me everything we have on this Earth. Every record. Every mention. Every rumor." The officer worked frantically at his console. His 4 eyes darted across streams of data. His fingers flew over the controls. After several minutes, he looked up with an expression of pure bewilderment. "Admiral, there is nothing. No records exist of any planet called Earth. No species matching this description has ever been encountered. These creatures are completely unknown to us. They do not exist in any database of the collective or any of our allied species or any of our conquered peoples." He paused and swallowed hard. "Admiral, according to every record we possess, these beings should not exist at all." Zoroth stared at the alien face on the screen. The creature called Danny Sullivan was still waiting patiently for a response. It did not look afraid. It did not look aggressive. It looked curious. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, the Valorian collective had encountered something they could not identify or classify or understand. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, they faced the unknown, and Admiral Zoroth, veteran of countless conflicts, master of 100 conquered worlds, felt the cold grip of fear tighten around his heart. He pressed the communication button with a finger that was not quite steady. "Commander Sullivan, please hold your position. We will be sending representatives to meet with you shortly." The human smiled. It was a small expression, but somehow it changed the entire shape of his face. "We look forward to it, Admiral." Wanderer out. The screen went dark. The observation deck remained silent. Every Valorian was thinking the same thought, but none dared speak it aloud. Something new had entered their universe. And nothing would ever be the same again, Commander. Danny Sullivan had been a cargo pilot for 15 years before he joined the experimental space program. He had flown supplies between Earth and Mars more times than he could count. He had seen storms on Jupiter and the rings of Saturn up close. He thought he had seen everything the universe had to offer. He was wrong. The bridge of the Wanderer was small and cramped. It was built for function and not for comfort. 5 stations surrounded the central command chair where Danny sat with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. The coffee was terrible, but it reminded him of home, and right now home felt very far away. Lieutenant Maria Vance sat at the navigation console. She was young and brilliant and had graduated top of her class from the academy. Her fingers moved across the controls as she ran calculation after calculation. Each result made her frown deeper than the last. "Commander," she finally said, "I have confirmed our position." And Maria turned to face him. Her eyes were wide, but her voice was steady. "Sir, we are not in the Milky Way galaxy anymore. The experimental drive worked exactly as designed. It created a bridge through space, and we crossed it. But the destination was not what we expected. We jumped approximately 2 million light-years from Earth. The words hung in the air like smoke. 2 million light-years. Danny tried to wrap his mind around that number, but it was too big. It was beyond comprehension. Chief Engineer Kyle Brennan climbed up from the lower deck. He was a big man with rough hands and grease permanently embedded under his fingernails. He had built half the systems on this ship himself, and he understood them better than anyone alive. "The drive is stable," he reported. "Whatever happened, it did not damage the core systems. We have power and life support and propulsion. We can move. We just do not know where to move to." Danny nodded slowly. He looked around at his crew. There were 12 of them in total. 12 humans floating in an alien galaxy with no map and no way home. Most commanders would panic in this situation. Danny had never been most commanders. "Options," he said simply. Petty Officer Sam Holland spoke up from the communication station. He was the youngest member of the crew and still had the eager energy of someone who believed everything would work out fine. "Sir, we could try to reverse the jump. Retrace our steps back to Earth." Kyle shook his head. "The drive needs time to recharge. At least 6 months before we can attempt another jump. And even then, there is no guarantee we will end up where we started." "So we are stuck here," Maria said quietly. For now, Danny agreed. But stuck does not mean helpless. We have supplies for 8 months. We have a ship that works. And apparently we have neighbors. He gestured toward the viewport where the massive Valorian station hung in the distance like a metal moon. Lights flickered across its surface. Smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. It was clearly the product of an advanced civilization. A civilization that had already made contact. "They want to meet us," Sam reported. "The Admiral has proposed a meeting at a neutral station." Diplomatic protocols. They seemed very formal about the whole thing. Dr. Nina Park entered the bridge from the medical bay. She was small and quiet and rarely spoke unless she had something important to say. As the ship's doctor and xenobiologist, she had spent the last few hours studying every piece of data they had gathered about the Valorians. "Commander, I have been analyzing their communications and their visible biology. They are fascinating creatures. For eyes suggest a predator species that evolved to track multiple targets. Their skin pigmentation indicates a world with a different star than our sun. Their body language in the transmission showed clear signs of discomfort and uncertainty." "They are scared of us?" Kyle asked with surprise. "Not scared exactly. Confused. They do not know what to make of us. We do not fit into any category they recognize. That makes them nervous." Nina paused and adjusted her glasses. "I recommend caution, Commander. A nervous predator is a dangerous predator." Danny considered her words carefully. She was right, of course. They were walking into unknown territory in every sense. One wrong move could start a war they had no chance of winning. But staying hidden was not an option either. They needed information. They needed allies. They needed to understand this new universe if they had any hope of surviving in it. "Here we go to the meeting," Danny decided. "Maria, Kyle, Nina, you are with me. Sam, you have the bridge. Keep the engines warm and the communications open. If anything goes wrong, you take the Wanderer and run. Do not look back. Do not try to save us. Just run." Sam looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew better. "Yes, sir." The shuttle bay was small and held only to transport craft. Danny and his team boarded the larger one and undocked from the Wanderer. The flight to the neutral station took 3 hours. 3 hours of silence and tension, and watching alien stars drift past the windows. The station was enormous. It made the Valorian monitoring post look like a toy. Great spires of metal and crystal reached out in every direction. Thousands of ships were docked along its arms. Hundreds of species moved through its corridors, conducting business and diplomacy and all the complicated interactions of civilized life. A Valorian escort met them at the docking port. The soldiers were tall and imposing with armor that gleamed under artificial lights. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They said nothing as they led the humans through winding corridors toward the meeting chamber. Danny studied everything they passed. He noted the security checkpoints and the emergency exits and the patterns of foot traffic. Old habits from his cargo pilot days. Always know your surroundings. Always have an escape route. The meeting chamber was a large, circular room with a domed ceiling that showed a projection of the stars outside. Admiral Zorath was already waiting. He stood at the center of the room with 12 soldiers arranged behind him in perfect formation. His 4 eyes fixed on Danny the moment he entered. "Commander Sullivan," Zorath said. His voice was deep and resonant and carried easily across the chamber. "Welcome to neutral territory. I am Admiral Zoroth of the Valorian Collective. I speak with the authority of the High Council." Danny stepped forward and offered his hand in the traditional human greeting. Zoroth stared at the extended limb with obvious confusion. After an awkward moment, Danny lowered his hand and simply nodded instead. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Admiral. As I said before, we come in peace. We are explorers. We ended up in your space by accident, and we mean no harm to anyone, so you claim," Zoroth replied. His tone was polite, but there was suspicion beneath the surface. "Yet you appeared from nowhere using technology we cannot identify. You come from a world we have never heard of. You belong to a species that does not exist in any record of any civilization we have ever encountered. Surely you can understand our concern." "I understand completely. If a strange ship appeared in Earth's solar system, we would have the same questions." Danny kept his voice calm and friendly. "We are happy to share information about ourselves, our world, our history. We have nothing to hide." Zoroth's 4 eyes narrowed slightly. "Then let us begin with a simple question. Commander, what are humans? What kind of species are you? What is your nature?" Danny thought about the question. He thought about Earth with its wars and its diseases and its natural disasters. He thought about the millions of years of evolution that had shaped humanity. He thought about all the things humans had survived and overcome and conquered. He smiled. "Admiral, that is a very long story, but I will do my best to explain." And so began the first true conversation between humans and the Valorian Collective. Neither side knew it yet, but this conversation would change everything. The words spoken in that chamber would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. History was being made one sentence at a time. Danny Sullivan took a deep breath and began to tell the story of humanity. The negotiations began slowly. Admiral Zorath asked questions, and Danny Sullivan answered them as honestly as he could. He told the Valorians about Earth. He described the blue oceans and green forests and towering mountains. He explained that humans had only recently developed space travel and were still exploring their own solar system. He admitted that the jump to this galaxy was an accident caused by experimental technology. Zorath listened carefully. His 4 eyes never left Danny's face. Behind him, his soldiers stood like statues. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply watched the humans with expressions that were impossible to read. "You say your species is young," Zorath said after Danny finished speaking. "You say you have only traveled among the stars for a short time, yet you possess technology capable of crossing between galaxies. How is this possible?" Danny shrugged. It was a casual gesture, but Zorath found it strange. No species he had ever encountered responded to serious questions with such relaxed body language. Humans are curious by nature. We see a problem, and we try to solve it. We wanted to travel faster, so we built faster engines. We wanted to go further, so we invented new ways to bend space. Sometimes the results surprise even us. "Your technology is dangerous," Zorath said flatly. "A species that can appear anywhere without warning is a threat to galactic stability. We are not a threat to anyone. We just want to find our way home." Maria Vance stepped forward. She had been studying the Valorians during the conversation and had noticed things that concerned her. "Admiral, may I ask a question?" Zorath's eyes shifted to her. There was something dismissive in his gaze. Among Valorians, females held lower status than males. The idea that a female would speak during important negotiations was unusual. You may speak. Your collective controls 900 star systems. You have clearly encountered many other species during your expansion. How do you normally handle first contact situations? The question was direct and pointed. Zoroth did not answer immediately. He exchanged a glance with one of his officers before responding. The collective offers all species a choice. They may join us willingly and enjoy the benefits of our protection and resources, or they may resist and face the consequences. And how many species have chosen to resist? Maria asked. None that still exist. The words fell like stones into water. The meaning was clear. The Valorian collective did not make friends. They made subjects. Any species that refused to submit was destroyed. This was not a diplomatic meeting. This was an evaluation. The Valorians were trying to determine if humans were useful enough to absorb or dangerous enough to eliminate. Danny felt the tension in the room shift. His crew understood the situation now. They were not guests here. They were prey being examined by predators. Kyle Brennan moved closer to Danny. The engineer was not a soldier, but he was big and strong and knew how to handle himself in a fight. His eyes were scanning the room for exits and weapons and anything that could be used for defense. Dr. Nina Park remained calm. She had dealt with dangerous situations before during her medical career. A steady hand was more valuable than a quick one. She watched the Valorian soldiers carefully and noticed something interesting. They were nervous. Their grips on their weapons were too tight. Their breathing was too fast. For all their armor and technology, they were afraid of the 4 small humans standing before them. Admiral Danny said slowly, I think there has been a misunderstanding. Humanity does not join collectives. We do not submit to other species. We are happy to be friends and allies and trading partners, but we will not become subjects of your empire. Zora's expression hardened. You are one ship with 12 crew members. You have no fleet, no allies, no way home. You are in no position to negotiate terms. Maybe not. But our answer is still no. The room went very quiet. No one had ever refused the collective before. Not like this. Not so calmly and directly. Zoreth did not know how to respond. In his experience, refusal was always followed by fear and begging and eventually surrender. These humans showed none of those things. They simply stood there looking at him with steady eyes and relaxed postures. One of the Valorian soldiers could not contain himself any longer. He was young and eager and had been taught his entire life that the collective was supreme. The casual defiance of these tiny aliens was an insult he could not tolerate. He stepped forward and grabbed Maria's arm with his long fingers. You will show respect, he growled. What happened next occurred very fast. Maria twisted her body and pulled against the grip. The soldier held tighter. Kyle moved to help her. Another soldier blocked his path. Weapons were raised. Voices shouted in languages that did not translate properly. In the chaos, a blade was drawn. It was a ceremonial weapon carried by the first soldier. He had not meant to use it, but his hand moved on instinct. The blade sliced through the air and found flesh. Danny Sullivan's arm opened with a long, shallow cut. Everyone froze. Danny looked down at his arm. Blood was flowing from the wound. Red blood. Thick and dark and very human. It dripped onto the polished floor of the meeting chamber and pooled. They're like spilled wine. Admiral Zoreth stared at the blood. His 4 eyes were wide with something that looked like shock. Behind him, his soldiers had gone completely still. Even the one holding the blade seemed paralyzed by what he had done. Nina, Danny said calmly, would you mind? Dr. Park was already moving. She pulled a small medical kit from her belt and knelt beside Danny. Her hands were steady as she cleaned the wound and applied a bandage. It is not deep, she reported. A few stitches and some rest. You will be fine in a week. A week. Zoroth's voice was barely a whisper. That wound would kill a Valorian in ours. Our blood cannot survive outside the body. Our tissue cannot repair itself quickly enough to stop the bleeding. Nina looked up at the Admiral with genuine surprise. Really? Human blood clots naturally to stop bleeding? Our bodies produce new cells constantly to repair damage. This kind of wound is considered minor among our species. Children receive worse injuries while playing. Intelligence officer behind Zorith was scanning the blood on the floor with a portable device. His hands were shaking so badly, he almost dropped it twice. When the results appeared on his screen, he made a sound that was halfway between a gasp and a moan. "Admiral," he said in a trembling voice. "Their blood carries oxygen throughout their entire body using a protein called hemoglobin. Their cells contain repair mechanisms that activate automatically when damage is detected. Their immune system is constantly fighting off microscopic invaders. Their entire biology is designed for survival and recovery." Zoroth took a step backward, then another. For the first time in his 300 cycles of life, he was looking at something that genuinely terrified him. These small, soft creatures with their 2 eyes and their strange pink skin were built to survive. They were not fragile at all. They were enduring in ways the Valorians could not even imagine. Danny Sullivan stood up. Blood was still seeping through the bandage on his arm, but he did not seem to notice or care. He looked at Admiral Zorath with an expression that was almost friendly. "Admiral, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. How about we start over? No more threats. No more demands. Just 2 species trying to understand each other." Zorith could not speak. He could only stare at the human and the red blood on the floor and wonder what kind of universe could produce such creatures. The soldier who had drawn the blade dropped his weapon. It clattered against the floor, and the sound echoed through the silent chamber like a thunderclap. Everything had changed, and everyone in that room knew it. Word spread through the Valorian collective like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every officer in the fleet had heard the story. Within days, every citizen knew. The humans had been cut, and they had not died. Their blood was red and thick and stayed on the floor like a stain that refused to disappear. The wound that should have been fatal was treated with a simple bandage and dismissed as minor. The soldier who had drawn the blade was placed in medical care. Not for any physical injury, but for the trauma of what he had witnessed. He could not stop talking about the human's eyes. They had shown no fear, no panic, not even surprise. The human had looked at his own bleeding arm the way someone might look at a small scratch from a thorn. Admiral Zorith returned to the Sovereign's eye, and immediately, Jalzi called an emergency meeting of the High Council. The 12 most powerful Valorians in the quadrant gathered in a secure chamber deep within the station. Their faces appeared on screens arranged in a circle, and their expressions ranged from skeptical to terrified. "Show them," Zoroth commanded. The recording played on every screen. The humans entering the chamber. The conversation. The tension. Then the blade and the blood and the impossible calmness of the creature called Danny Sullivan. The council watched in silence. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long time. "This could be a trick," said Counselor Veth. She was the oldest member of the council and had seen many deceptions in her time. "Perhaps their blood is artificial. Perhaps they have technology that mimics healing." "Our scanners detected no artificial components," Zorith replied. "The blood is organic. The healing response is biological. These creatures are exactly what they appear to be." "Then what are they?" demanded Counselor Rax. He was young and aggressive and commanded the largest battle fleet in the collective. "Where did they come from? How can such beings exist?" Zorath gestured, and a new image appeared on the screens. It was a planet, blue and green and white with swirling clouds. It looked peaceful from space. "Almost beautiful," says Earth, Zorith said. "The human homeworld. We have gathered all available information from their ship's database and from our conversation with their commander. What we have learned is deeply disturbing." He began to list the facts. Earth was a world of extreme conditions. Its temperature varied wildly from burning heat to freezing cold. Its surface was covered with water that could drown the unwary. Its atmosphere contained a gas called oxygen that was actually poisonous to most species in high concentrations. The planet was home to millions of different life forms, and most of them were trying to kill each other at any given moment. The humans evolved in this environment, Zorith continued. They were not the strongest creatures on their world. They were not the fastest or the most deadly. They survived through endurance and intelligence and sheer stubborn refusal to die. More images appeared. Predators with massive teeth. Insects that spread disease. Plants that produced poison. Natural disasters that could destroy entire regions in moments. Earth was not a paradise. It was a death world. And humans had not just survived there, they had conquered it. Their bodies reflect their history, Zorath explained. They can regulate their internal temperature through a process called sweating. This allows them to remain active in heat that would kill most species. They can run for extremely long distances without stopping. Their ancestors hunted prey not by being faster, but by following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Counselor Veth leaned forward. They are persistent predators, and their resilience extends beyond simple endurance. Their bones can break and heal stronger than before. Their skin can be cut and it repairs itself. Their immune systems are constantly fighting off microscopic organisms that would kill a Valorian in days. They live with death every moment of their existence, and they have adapted to ignore it. The council chamber was very quiet. Every member was processing this information and reaching the same terrible conclusion. The Valorians had built their empire on the assumption that they were superior to all other species. They were stronger and more advanced and more ruthless. No one could challenge them because no one could match them. But humans were different. Humans were not trying to match the Valorians. They were something else entirely. They were survivors in the purest sense. They did not win through strength or technology. They won by refusing to lose. They won by getting up every time they were knocked down. They won by bleeding and healing and continuing forward no matter what stood in their way. What do we do? Counselor Rax asked. His aggressive tone had faded. He sounded uncertain now, almost afraid. Do we destroy them before they become a threat? With what? Zoroth replied. We have one ship with 12 crew members. If we destroy them, we learn nothing. And if there are more humans out there, and they discover what we did, then we will have made an enemy that does not know how to surrender. Then we make peace with them. Counselor Veth suggested. We offer them alliance instead of subjugation. We make them partners instead of subjects. The collective has never done such a thing. The collective has never faced such a species. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for war. Some argued for peace. Some suggested capturing the humans and studying them to find weaknesses. Others warned that such actions could backfire catastrophic ally. In the end, Sorov spoke the words that settled the matter. I looked into that human's eyes after he was cut. He was not afraid of us. He was not angry. He was curious. He wanted to understand us the same way we wanted to understand him. These creatures are not our enemies unless we make them so. And I do not think we want them as enemies, the council voted. The decision was not unanimous, but the majority agreed. The Valorian collective would offer the humans something they had never offered any species before. True diplomatic relations. Equal standing. Respect. It was a historic moment. 12,000 cycles of conquest and domination ended not with a battle but with a vote. The mightiest empire in the quadrant had encountered something it could not defeat and had chosen. Wisdom over pride. On the Wanderer, Danny Sullivan sat in the medical bay while Dr. Nina Park changed his bandage. The wound was already beginning to close. New pink skin was forming over the cut. In another few days there would be nothing left but a faint scar. How do you think it went? Nina asked. Danny flexed his arm and felt only a small sting of pain. I think they are scared of us. Is that good or bad? Danny thought about the question. He thought about all the times in human history when fear had led to violence and destruction. He thought about all the wars fought because one group was afraid of another. Fear was dangerous. Fear made people do terrible things. But fear could also be useful. Fear could make people cautious. Fear could make them think twice before attacking. Fear could keep the peace when nothing else would. I think it is good, Danny finally said. For now at least, they will not underestimate us. They will not assume they can push us around. And maybe with time, fear can turn into respect. Respect can turn into friendship. Friendship can turn into alliance. Nina smiled. You are an optimist, Commander. I am human, Danny replied. We have to be optimists. It is the only way we survive. Outside the viewport, the stars of an alien galaxy glittered like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Somewhere out there, the Valorian Council was making decisions that would shape the future of two species. And somewhere far beyond the Wanderer's sensors, the Milky Way waited for its lost children to find their way home. Danny Sullivan looked at those unknown stars and felt something he had not expected to feel. So far from Earth, he felt hope. 3 weeks had passed. Since the incident in the meeting chamber, Danny Sullivan's arm had healed completely. Only a thin white line remained where the blade had cut him. He traced the scar with his finger sometimes when he was thinking. It reminded him of how far they had come and how much further they still had to go. The Wanderer remained docked at the neutral station. The Valorians had provided them with supplies and fuel and access to their communication networks. It was a generosity that surprised everyone on the crew. These were not the actions of conquerors. These were the actions of people who wanted to make a good impression. Admiral Zorth had visited twice since the Council's decision. Each time he came alone without soldiers or weapons. He sat with Danny in the small meeting room aboard the Wanderer, and they talked for hours. The Admiral asked questions about Earth and humanity, and Danny answered them honestly. In return, Zoroth shared information about the collective and the other species in the quadrant. You have changed things, Zoroth said during his second visit. The Council has never voted for peace before. In 12,000 cycles, we have always chosen dominance. Your species has made us reconsider everything we thought we knew. Danny poured 2 cups of coffee and offered one to the Admiral. Zorath accepted it cautiously. He had tried the strange brown liquid before and found it bitter, but oddly satisfying. We did not come here to change anything, Danny said. We just wanted to explore, to see what was out there. That is what humans do. We look at the horizon, and we want to know what is beyond it, even when what is beyond might kill you. Especially then. The danger makes it interesting. Zoroth shook his head slowly. His 4 eyes blinked in the pattern that Danny had learned meant confusion. Your species is very strange, Commander. You embrace risk in ways that seem almost suicidal. Yet you survive. You thrive. It defies all logic. Logic is not everything. Sometimes you need a little madness to achieve great things. The Admiral considered this. He sipped his coffee and stared out the viewport at the stars beyond. My people have ruled this quadrant for a very long time. We became comfortable, complacent. We stopped growing because we believed there was nothing left to grow toward. Meeting your species has reminded us that the universe is larger than we imagined. There are mysteries we have not solved, wonders we have not seen. Perhaps it is time for the collective to start exploring again. It was a warm expression that reached his eyes and changed his whole face. Admiral, I think that is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. The formal diplomatic agreement was signed 1 week later. It was a simple document by galactic standards. The Valorian Collective recognized humanity as an independent species with full rights and sovereignty. Humans would be granted safe passage through collective space. Trade and cultural exchange would be permitted and encouraged. Neither side would engage in hostile actions against the other. For the Valorians, it was unprecedented. For the humans, it was simply common sense. But both sides understood the significance of what they were doing. This was not just a treaty between 2 governments. It was a bridge between 2 ways of thinking, 2 philosophies of existence meeting and finding common ground. Maria. Vance worked with Valorian scientists to study their navigation charts. Somewhere in those records there might be information about the Milky Way, a path home. It would take time to analyze all the data, but time was something they had plenty of now. Kyle. Brennan spent his days in the station's engineering bays. The Valorians were fascinated by human technology, and humans were equally fascinated by theirs. Kyle learned about crystal-based computing systems and quantum communication arrays. He taught the Valorian engineers about fusion reactors and electromagnetic propulsion. Both sides benefited from the exchange. Dr. Nina Park became something of a celebrity among Valorian medical researchers. Human biology was unlike anything they had ever studied. The idea of a species that could heal itself and fight off disease and survive extreme conditions was revolutionary. Nina gave lectures and demonstrations and answered thousands of questions. She enjoyed the attention, even though it exhausted her. Sam Holland maintained communications between the Wanderer and Earth. The signals took a very long time to travel 2 million light years, but they eventually got through. The first message from home arrived on a quiet evening when most of the crew was asleep. Danny read it alone in his quarters. It was from his daughter Emma. She was 12 years old and had his eyes and her mother's stubborn determination. The message was short and simple. She missed him. She was proud of him. She knew he would find his way back. Danny read those words over and over until they blurred from the moisture in his eyes. He was so far from home, so far from everyone he loved, but he was not lost. He was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what humans had always done. Reaching for the impossible and refusing to let go, he recorded a response. He told Emma about the stars and the aliens and the adventure. He told her that he was safe and healthy and thinking of her every day. He told her that he would come home. He did not know how or when, but he would find a way. Humans always found a way. The message was sent. It would take months to reach Earth. Months more for a reply to return. But it was a connection. A thread of hope stretching across the void. As long as that thread existed, Danny knew he was not alone. On the final day before the Wanderer departed for its exploration mission, Admiral Zoroth came to see Danny one last time. They stood together on the observation deck of the neutral station and watched ships come and go from 100 different worlds. "The galaxy is watching you now," Zoroth said. "Word has spread about the humans who appeared from nowhere, the species that bleeds red and does not die. Some are curious, some are afraid, some are both. Let them watch," Danny replied. "We have nothing to hide. What will you do next?" Danny looked out at the endless stars. Each one was a sun. Each sun might have planets. Each planet might have life. The possibilities were infinite. The universe was vast beyond comprehension, and humans had only just begun to explore it. "We will do what we have always done," Danny said. "We will keep moving forward. We will face whatever challenges come our way. We will fall down and get back up. We will bleed and heal and continue. That is what it means to be human." Zoroth extended his hand. It was an awkward gesture for a Valorian, but he had learned it from watching the humans. Danny took the offered hand and shook it firmly. "Safe travels, Commander Sullivan." "Thank you, Admiral." "For everything." The Wanderer departed the next morning. Its engines hummed with power as it pulled away from the end.